It is so hot here today, but I just wanted to make a video on basically my story of going vegan as the daughter of a farmer, coming from a family that is connected to animal agriculture. It is literally 82 degrees right now, and I don't have AC in case you're wondering. So I'm going to try to get through this with sweating minimally, but basically I've been vegan for, sorry about my chair being loud. I've been vegan for 7 years now, which is amazing. Why am I still holding my phone like that? And I just want to talk about how I went vegan, like what prompted me to go vegan. So I grew up in rural Nebraska. My dad was a corn and soybeans farmer, and you can probably guess that the crops that he was growing and all the other farms in the area go towards animal agriculture, because if you're breeding billions of animals into existence to exploit and then slaughter for meat, dairy, and eggs, like, you need to grow their food somehow, which, by the way, that we could free up 75% of our farmland under a completely plant-based food system. But anyway, that's what my family does, and I care about my family. I am not saying anything bad about them. I just wanted to talk about my experience with going vegan when that was obviously the situation and life that I grew up in. And, I went vegan when I was in college, but I still lived with my family at the time, and I dropped out of college and lived with them literally during COVID. So I was living with them for a little over a year as I was a hardcore animal rights activist online. That was really the only thing available to me in rural Nebraska when I didn't have a car. It took me a long time to get a job, but anyway, I want to start at the beginning of this story. Also, about 99% of animal products in the United States come from factory farms, and those animals are not grazing, so you can probably guess that their food needs to be grown somewhere. But anyway, that is the farm that I grew up on. My dad was also a cow farmer before I was born. I'm not exactly sure why he stopped, but he did stop. And the farm that I grew up on had 3 barns. Technically, one's a corn crib. Yes, I know, Dad, if he would ever watch this, which I don't think he ever would, but it was an old animal farm. I just finished reading Little Red Barns by Will Potter, and it is a really, really good, really well-written book about the rise of factory farming and also ag laws and how the government and animal agriculture are in bed together, and there's a lot in here, and also about how the idea of Little Red Barns is connected to fascism. And Little Red Barns is the concept that animal agriculture is feeding us now. Big animal agriculture, factory farms, all the big meat and dairy companies are trying to humane wash their products. But meanwhile, all those barns are, sitting vacant now and crumbling down. Not that it was ethical to kill animals then or steal a cow's milk meant for the cow's baby, but, factory farming is like pretty bad. So anyway, that book got me thinking about just my connection to animal agriculture, basically. And also my dad was a hunter, so I just find it interesting that I, went vegan. It definitely felt challenging at the time, and like I wasn't going to be accepted. I can't really talk in too much depth about animal rights, and that's definitely been the case compared to other people, but I want to get more into depth about this. So my dad grew up on the farm that I grew up on, and so did his mom, my grandma, and my dad would talk about how my grandma would cut the heads off chickens and how the chickens would be running around without a head. And I remember as a kid, like, thinking that just felt kind of wrong. Like, we're taught from a young age, you know, that we eat animals, and we're taught that we like have to, and this is just how it's always been, and people don't really question it. You just kind of like go along with it. But I, at a young age, was thinking that like that just doesn't sound like a good thing. Like, it makes sense. Like, there's no inherent violence and apathy in children, or hopefully anyone, to commit violence on an animal. Like, I cared about animals. I grew up with a lot of cats, and then we always had at least one dog. Tilly was my dog for 12 years, and then we had Chance. And then I also remember my dad talking about how animals kill each other in nature, and I remember thinking, like, I don't like that. You know, a lot of people romanticize nature and animals killing each other in nature, and are like, well, that's nature. Like, it's just the appeal to nature fallacy. My favorite logical fallacy, in case you're wondering, because it's so prevalent that even vegans use it. Like, they will use the appeal to nature fallacy to try to respond to non-vegans saying we can eat animals, it's moral because other animals do it too. And they will be like, well, what we do isn't natural. Because, okay. I can't talk about this right now. Okay. When that's irrelevant. Like, yes, factory farming is not the same thing as a lion killing a gazelle, but... And what does natural even mean? Because, like, we're another species. Does that mean everything that humans do is natural? So natural just means what other species do. So natural is kind of like speciesism in its own way. I'm done. So I didn't even accept that at a young age. I just thought, like, this didn't feel right. And also, Babe, the movie about the pig, was my favorite movie, like, as a kid. And I loved pigs since watching that movie, so you can imagine I eventually, when I was thinking more about this, had some cognitive dissonance about pigs. And I remember thinking to myself, this is at an older age, but I was thinking, well, the pigs that I eat aren't the cute ones. I'm eating the ugly ones. That is some mental gymnastics. Honestly, that is... Okay, yeah, but also I am eating the cute ones, because I honestly think the pigs that we eat are cute. Not me. Don't eat pigs. Love pigs. They're my favorite animal. Literally my favorite animal. And then another memory I have is my brother and I went fishing with my dad at the creek. This is so rural, but that's my childhood. I remember a hook got stuck in the fish's mouth, and my dad like was trying to dig and get the hook out. And I remember feeling super bad about the fish, and I was like, I don't want the fish to suffer with a hook in their mouth. But I don't know why I didn't connect. Like, that's what fishing is you impale fish with a hook. Which is crazy, by the way, because fish are like the species people are most comfortable with, like, treating horribly. They have, like, no welfare laws, like, protecting them. Like, fish, and then you have, like, chickens are the next animal, you know, who are killed in mass and, like, the least protected or considered. But, fish have brains, they do feel pain, they literally are sentient, creatures, sentient beings. So, yeah, I was caring about fish at age 8, and like, I don't know why I didn't connect, like, that's what fishing is. Fishing is not, like, cool. Another thing I remember growing up is how every, like, August there's the county fair and also the state fair, of course, and it basically is just like showcasing animals. Like, I had multiple friends who were in 4-H, which they would just show animals, which I keep saying which, ignore that. So they would be showing animals, which I kind of learned a little bit about when I was in the class for FFA. More on FFA later. But they would show animals to, like, I guess show, like, that their flesh looks good and they're healthy. I don't know. Maybe they're good breeding stock for more animals to kill, I guess. But they would do that, and we would, like, walk around the buildings and see, like, the cages of chickens and rabbits, and, like looking back, this is like crazy. I went once post going vegan and it was just kind of like weird. And also the like children riding horses, like I ran a horse that just literally ran in a circle. They were attached to this thing that forces them to walk. And I would always like ride the horse when I was little. And yeah, that doesn't sit with me. It doesn't sit well with the horses. Like, I'm not cool with that. They're not cool with that. Another thing, growing up, this is like a side note, but the amount of dairy advertisements in the school cafeteria, like, are we serious? Because it was both of my schools growing up. You know, there was the Got Milk campaign, but the dairy industry, being in bed with the government in particular, is like so insane to me because they basically just brainwashed everybody into thinking that we need to consume another species' breast milk past infancy. Like, we need to? Am I another species? Am I a baby? No, I'm not a baby cow.
You breast milk from a cow? You're not a baby cow, bro.
It is not unnecessary.
You're not a baby cow. You're a human being.
So why would I need to consume any amount of dairy? Yeah, no, that's not a thing. But the government just wanted to, you know, they're in a back and forth relationship with the dairy industry. So that was just like kind of crazy because I drank cow's milk like with every meal, which is like, okay, no, that's like crazy. I did that for way too long, like through high school or something. I don't know when I like started drinking water instead, but you know, in school they always had the little like, you know, paper, cardboard, whatever it was, like milk boxes. Obviously I always got the chocolate one because how could anyone get the normal one? Because why are we drinking plain milk? That's kind of a lie though, because I would drink plain milk at dinner with my family. And I also thought that like meat was like the center of meals. So like America, out of like all the other countries, is just so meat and dairy heavy. It's like insane. And it makes me sick because other countries are following in our footsteps and more animals are being bred into existence, kept in insane confinement, and then killed in murder factories to keep up with this trend. And the human population just keeps exponentially rising, and then we just keep breeding more animals and killing more animals. Yay, love that. Don't love that. That is not a good thing. Another thing that happened is I remember my dad said we could have rabbits. And I was like, yeah, I love rabbits. Like, I would love to have rabbits on the farm. And then he said, but we would have to like sell them to be slaughtered for meat. And I was like, yeah, no, I wouldn't, no, couldn't do that. I'm not a fan of that. So I just think it's like crazy. Like, I can connect that at the time, but like I'm still eating animals. Just the levels of speciesism and cognitive dissonance and like normalization of meat, dairy, and eggs and animal farming is just insane. Another thing about me when I was younger was when I was like around age 11, I had like this plan to like build little shelters for stray cats because once my brother and I on the farm, we saw a stray cat. I named him Davy and we brought him food once, and I like wanted to build him something, but that just didn't really happen. But I, you know, was planning on this. I really did have close relationships with animals. I literally named the barn swallows in one of the barns. I remember once a snake was like, this is kind of like gross, but the snake was like ran over by the lawnmower and their tail was like chopped off. And I remember spraying water on them to try to help with the injury. So I cared about animals, even though I was raised Christian, and I think it's harder to connect with non-human animals if you personally do not think that humans are animals. I don't know if this fully tracks. Like, I know that there's Christian vegans, and I think that's like really awesome, that even though you would think that animals don't have souls, you still care about them. Like, because I feel like that's an issue, you know, because Christianity is all about humans being sinful and being saved and having souls, and animals are just kind of like here. But evolution is like, oh, we evolved beside animals, and like we're another species of animal who's more intelligent and, you know, has developed society, but at the end of the day, we are still animals. I don't know if this fully checks out, but I just noticed that as a trend. But I still cared very deeply about animals despite being raised super Christian, and eventually I became an atheist, but at this point I was not. That happened, yeah, it happened like very similar time frame to when I went vegan, so I was like deconstructing all these things and when I was becoming an adult. So I, partly because my crush was in it, I just had to admit that anyway, because partly because my crush was in it, I joined FFA, Future Farmers of America. This is gonna be fun, isn't it? So for FFA, you had to, at some point, take an ag class. So I took a class on agriculture, which of course goes over animal agriculture. And at one point in that class, we watched a video of cows being humanely slaughtered, i.e. shot in the head with a gun, essentially, a captive bolt pistol, I believe is what it's called. I was like 15 years old at this point, and I remember looking at that footage, and we're supposed to be seeing it and like thinking like, oh well, this is like fine, but I was thinking like, that's fucked up, even though there wasn't like signs of the animals like suffering in the video. Like, just the concept of killing cows who don't want to die, and it's, you know, their life, their body, that just seemed like messed up. And I remember thinking like, nobody else thinks this way. Like, everybody around me, you know, eats meat and doesn't think this way. I don't know anybody who would have a problem with killing animals and eating them as meat. Meat is a euphemism, by the way. Like, it literally, I think the word meat just means like a substance of something like thick or whatever. Dead bodies, let's just start saying dead bodies and corpses and carcasses. I'm just gonna say that instead of meat, because meat literally is a euphemism, by the way. So I think like literally that lunch I probably like ate a burger or something, but I was like connecting it. Like, that didn't feel right. I grew up seeing cows, you know, growing up in rural Nebraska. There's a lot of like fields that have cows in them, and I would, you know, be happy to see like the little babies, and in the winter all the cows would huddle together to keep warm, and like I cared about them even though I didn't really interact, you know, with cows. There's other stuff that happened with FFA. Like, I went to some like, not a conference, kind of like an outdoor like agriculture festival. So like I grew up very connected to the industry, even though I know that there's some vegans who are literally like the child of like a dairy farmer or a meat farmer. I'm aware that those cases exist. I don't relate to it being that extreme, but I don't really relate to the vegans who, you know, their parents aren't connected to the industry. But anyway, I remember one FFA event, there was like a bunch of different meat from animals that people could try, and there was like alligator and like other like animals, and I wasn't really down with that either. Like, I was like, I don't really want to try like random animals like flesh. It's just kind of like weird. Which is, again, what's so funny is like, you know, we're conditioned like, oh, cows, pigs, chickens, these three animals primarily. You know, there could be sheep and ducks and turkeys, Not really horses here, but other places, yeah. You know, it literally just depends on where you are. Obviously, some places dogs are eaten. I just had a nightmare last night about dogs being killed and eaten, by the way. And then in my brain, I was like, anyway, this is so off topic, but this literally happened last night. And in the nightmare, there was like literally the bodies of dogs that people were lining up to sell. Like they were selling their heads. And I was like, this is so messed up. And then I was like, wow, this is literally no different from, you know, what's happening in America right now. Like, eating a pig is literally the same thing as eating a dog, morally speaking. It's literally just your perception. Thinking very deeply about this right now, because I even feel like some vegans have still a level of disconnect. Because I feel like that's why you can be technically vegan, but still be like an apologist, or you could be vegan, but sometimes like not be as hardcore about things as me. Let's just say it that way. There's still some conditioning, basically. The fact that we can have relationships with non-vegans. I don't know. There's like, anyway, this is also off topic. I'm going back to the topic now. So yeah, the FFA, there was just like some crazy stuff. There was like a petting zoo we had once. And then I also was very connected to cows because my family, we allowed this cow farmer to keep his cows on our property every other winter, right after the corn had been harvested, because then the cows can, you know, consume the remains of the corn husks and stalks and whatever else they eat. I'm not an expert on this, but whatever the cows were eating. So, like, sometimes I would, like, try to call the cows over to me and they would actually, like, listen. So I was, like, fairly connected to cows, and that was also weird. Because during the, when was it? Hold up. During the winter that I was in college but about to drop out, and actually like literally right after I dropped out, there was cows being kept at our farm, and I was vegan, and I really have no words to explain what that feels like. That I was living, you know, on a farm that had cows being kept there for the meat industry, as I'm vegan and like talking about animal rights and veganism online. I feel like nobody can fully understand what that felt like, and I've never really connected with another vegan who's been in that situation. I might be the only person who's experienced that particular thing. Like, being a hardcore vegan while you're living with your family who has cows at their place for the meat industry. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't met someone who's, you know, I feel like if someone has experienced that who's vegan, like, they probably, like, lived on an actual meat or dairy farm, but, like, it's kind of really specific, it being a, you know, crop farm that keeps cows there. Anyway, I feel like this video is going to be super long, but I just have a lot to say, so yeah, deal with it, basically. Just kidding, you get more content. 311 subscribers who, yeah, anyway, anyway, I remember I went on a trip with some extended family, the summer of 2016. When I was 16, I was shockingly born in 2000, so my age is whatever year it is. Anyway, it was like one of the only cool, I think it was Fort Robinson in Nebraska, in the western part of Nebraska, the panhandle-ish area. Okay, sorry for dissing Nebraska, but this was like one of the only cool, not like national parks, state parks, whatever it was, in Nebraska. But it had like a butte, and we rode horses up to the top of it, and I felt bad for my horse because he just seemed exhausted. His name was Danny. So I did ride a horse. Well, I rode, you know, ponies when I was little, but this is me actually riding a horse. I felt bad for the horse because I realized, like, he has no choice. Like, he has to go up this butte as many times as the, you know, owner says.
Hunting is another thing that I grew up connected to because my family had some trees on one of their pieces of land, and they would let people that they knew hunt there. One time I remember a family friend had just killed a deer, and I saw the dead deer, and I don't know, it's just a memory I have, but it's weird because I didn't like hunting. And in my mind, I thought like hunting is wrong if you do it for sport, but if you do it for meat, then it's okay. That was the system that I had in place in my head. Then I also remember my crush at the time made a joke about this hawk that my family like got connected with a wildlife rehabilitation service, and he basically joked that he would shoot the hawk. And I was like, what? Like, this was such a turnoff. This was like a huge turnoff. I was like, I think I might have, that really aided me getting over him, but. So basically, I was like kind of always turned off by hunting, but the reality is that we don't need to eat animals. Like, the vast majority of us on this planet don't need to kill and eat animals. We're not in a survival situation. And this is a side note, but I kind of think like just because it's a survival situation doesn't mean it's a moral thing to do. I'm not getting into that right now, even though I just said it, but basically hunting animals for meat and hunting animals for sport is literally the same thing. Deer are beautiful, peaceful beings. Please do not shoot them or any animal.
So I was like connecting things. I feel like it was just inevitable that I went vegan. It was just a matter of time. And then there's some people who, no matter how many connections they should make, they just don't care and never go vegan. But anyway, I'm not dissing anybody. I am. So anyway, I graduated high school in 2018, and then for the 2018 through 2019 school year, I went to the big college of Nebraska in Lincoln, UNL. And basically during my second half of the year there, I started to have some seeds planted, like the, early months of 2019. I guess I'm just gonna like list all the seeds planted because I've like loosely said it before, but I've never like compiled all of these different like moments before I went vegan into one video before. So I guess this is that video. I've talked like for a short amount of time in some TikToks, but yeah, I've never really sat down and talked about it, and I've been vegan for 7 years now, so that's what this video is. Okay, one thing that happened, and I still don't really know the context of this, like what possibly could be why I saw this, but I remember I was on the highway and, in a car. I would hope I would be in a car on the highway, but I was in a car with my family, and I remember seeing a truck, like a big truck, like where the storage part of it was just filled with dead cows. And I have zero clue what the context for this could be. Like, the only thing that makes sense is if they like culled a bunch of cows because of a virus or a disease or something. I don't know. Like, I have no clue why I saw this, like what the context is. This is not something that is common to see on the highway. But I remember looking at that and like thinking like those are dead bodies. I wasn't thinking like this is normal, but I looked around at everybody else, my family included, and thought how no one else is thinking that this is like weird. Like, this is just normal to see like dead bodies because they're a different species. They're cows and not humans. Like that, that's just like weird. And then one day I really had no friends at at UNL. So when I was at the dining hall eating one day, like I have no one to talk to. So I'm just like thinking, and I was like eating meat, and I was just thinking like I'm eating a muscle. Like I'm eating a muscle of a conscious being who used that muscle to move around. Like that was just like a weird thought. I never really thought about eating meat in that sense before. And I feel like most people don't, again, but I didn't think about it in that way. And I had been questioning a lot of things at this point in my life. I was slowly becoming an atheist and, leaving Christianity. And I was also questioning the conservatism that I was raised in and realizing I actually, like, with my values, align with the left. So I was, becoming left-wing and atheist, and it was just a time of, like, critical thought rather than just accepting what I've been taught. So I really just, like, became who I am around age 19. Like, it was a slow process. Like, leaving Christianity it started to slowly happen at, like, 16, 17, 18, But, yeah. I just think it's interesting how I became who I am values-wise, and I've just, like, stayed there. Now I'm 26, and I still am very, set in these things because I critically looked at it. I questioned things and changed my perspective because of new evidence and actually thinking. So that was just the time that this was. Another thing that happened was I watched a Shane Dawson video where he went vegan for a day. I mean, you can't really go vegan for a day, but he ate plant-based for a day. I was, like, really into Shane Dawson at the time. Don't worry, I was on the boat with canceling him in 2020. I never looked back, but but at the time, I was, like, really, I had a Shane Dawson. Did I? I think I did. Oh yeah, I did. I had, like, a pig Shane Dawson theme, like, birthday cake for when I turned 19. Anyway, we're not talking about that. Just kidding. I just talked about it. So I just remember watching this video and thinking how, like, I could never go vegan because it just seems so difficult. This girl had, like, vegan ranch and, like, vegan everything. And I was like, oh my God, you would have to buy vegan everything to be vegan. And that just seems so difficult. It's just funny because everyone thinks that, but, it just becomes the default to be vegan. Like, I know exactly what I'm gonna buy at the grocery store now, and it's not really a thought because I don't see animal products as food. Like, I'm just vegan. It doesn't really take effort, really. Like, sometimes it's an inconvenience because there's not vegan options at that place, but I don't think, like, oh, I wish I wasn't vegan. I think I wish animal products weren't everywhere. I wish it wasn't so prevalent to force these things on animals that it's hard to find a vegan option. So anyway, but at the time, that's what I was thinking. And just funny because I decided to go vegan, like, I don't know how many months later, but, a number of months later in 2019. Then I remember one day I overheard my family, like, making fun of vegans by saying that animals would overpopulate if we didn't kill them for meat. And at the time, even non-vegan me was like, what are you talking about? Like, because obviously they're being bred into existence. Cows, pigs, and chickens, turkeys, whatever else animal, are being bred into existence, forcibly bred through artificial insemination, commonly. So I feel like it just follows if the meat, dairy, and egg industries didn't exist, we wouldn't be breeding them into existence to exploit and kill them. Like, the animals who still exist, could be taken care of on sanctuaries, but the shift into a hypothetical plant-based food system would be gradual and not overnight. As much as I would, want it to be overnight. And another anti-vegan moment of my family was, I think I was at my grandma's house and my mom was talking about this cartoon that was basically making fun of vegans by saying this is what vegans want and showing, like, cows in a spa. And my mom was like, haha, exactly. And again, non-vegan me thought that's, like, ridiculous. Like, so you're basically making fun of people who want animals to not suffer and, be forced to undergo terrible things in animal farming. And, because you're making fun of them and saying, oh, you just want animals to have spas because the farms are already pretty good. No. And honestly, cows deserve spas. After the things, especially after the things that humans have forced onto cows, like, literally, yeah, let's give them spas. All we're literally saying is let's stop confining, exploiting, abusing, and killing animals and separating baby cows from their mothers so humans can drink the milk intended for the baby, and, you know, confining chickens for eggs and grinding up all the male chicks alive who are born in the egg industry, like, mass murdering animals just because we want to eat their flesh when we don't need to. And etc. Animal testing, clothing, fur, all the ways the animals are exploited, foie gras, horse carriages, horse racing, the list literally goes on, because that's what veganism is about, you know, not just animal agriculture and food. So basically, at the time, I knew that Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat were a thing, and also the rise of plant-based milks. I remember all this being reported on in the, the current events class when I was in high school. Like, this is around like 2017. And I remember my dining hall at college had a vegan burger, but I always got the meat burger because, like, I didn't have a reason specifically to pick the vegan burger. So I was, like, aware of vegans at this point. You know, back when I saw the slaughter footage when I was 15, I wasn't as aware of vegans, or even, like, I knew vegetarians existed, but I was not, like, super connected with the ethical argument, basically. And the fact that there is a group of people who are against, you know, exploiting and killing non-human animals. So I feel like this is just slowly changing, and I just didn't have that push of why, you know, we should avoid meat, dairy, and eggs. Like, I feel like to an extent it was a thought in the back of my head, you know, but I was not putting energy into thinking about it. Like, it's just the default to eat animal products. And finally, the last seed that was planted that, you know, made me actually decide to go vegan, the last seed that pushed me over the edge into, like, researching it myself, basically, was I'm gonna say this wrong, Kurzgesagt, the German, like, animation educational YouTube channel that got, like, a bunch of views. So I watched this video that was recommended by them because I had seen other videos by them, but it was called Why Meat is the Best Worst Thing in the World. And I learned through that video about, you know, multiple things about why the meat industry, animal agriculture is bad. And one thing I learned is how chicks are ground up alive, like the male chicks are ground up alive in the egg industry because they're born male and can't lay eggs. So the egg industry has no use for them, and they're not the right breed for broiler chickens to be raised for meat. Like, are you kidding me? Ground up alive or suffocated in trash bags or gassed to death. And this is, like, standard practice around the world. Like, even if you get free range eggs, whatever. So that, I was like, oh my God. Like, what? So after that, I just found that I commented on that video and wrote this, by the way. But I decided to look up slaughterhouse footage after that because, yeah, I just needed to see, you know, the actual reality of the industry rather than just blindly support it. And I watched footage of chickens being killed, standard practice, and then cows, and I was just crying. And I realized that I was the one forcing those animals to be there against their will if I'm buying these products. Like, these animals are not consenting to this. They want no part in this process that's being forced on them. Like, we've commodified their entire lives just for a product, just for a sandwich filler. And I'm the monster in the animal's eyes if I'm not vegan. If I am paying for these products and eating these products, literally animals' bodies and their bodily secretions, I am the reason that animal is there. And I could no longer let that be the reality. I cannot be why these animals are being tortured and killed in slaughterhouses. Like, that's just not a option. So I just decided to go vegan on, it was April 15th, 2019. I was basically scared to tell my family then because, you know, they literally work for animal agriculture and I've heard them say anti-vegan things. So I was really struggling to just say it, and this caused some issues. And also there was some other like drama going on at the time. I guess I don't want to get into it, but I was basically just kind of more extra nervous about my parents, and I didn't want to cause any more conflict, but I should have just said it straight up, and I regret like being kind of like cowardly about it and, you know, trying to like hide it when I could just say it. Like, I went vegan, I'm going vegan, like I could just say it, but I was just so scared. But eventually they figured it out, and I was still kind of like nervous about like talking about it with them, because I'm essentially saying there's something morally wrong with the industry that they work for, where, you know, the money that I've been raised with. And yeah, I guess I understood that that's like a sensitive thing. But that summer, you know, summer 2019, I began NotTodayTay and trying to outreach people online, explaining why they should go vegan and like debating them. And I was connecting with other vegans, and so activism online was really the only thing that I had in rural Nebraska, especially since I went to a different college the next year for the 2019-2020 school year, and that college was like literally in the middle of nowhere. I had no car. I had to get a ride to get groceries, and that college was like better in some ways for what I actually wanted to do, which at the time I thought was video. I wanted to major in video, but that's not really like necessary to go into video. So all of this was like my downward spiral in college, but, you know, having no friends there and really just not knowing what I was doing. All I knew was I was like super passionate about animal rights. Also at this point, I was like a official like atheist, and I realized a little later, like, I'm a leftist because I started to get educated on like capitalism and all that. But I also was nervous to talk about veganism with my family, because when I talked to my best friend at the time, who lived on the other side of Nebraska, about veganism and explained all these terrible things that are forced on animals and also the environmental impact and health and everything, I expected her to maybe change, because I just thought like she's a compassionate person and I've just learned all these things. I'm gonna go vegan, so surely she'll do the same. But no, this started me not really having much hope in humans. I think that honestly, there's a set amount of people who are the minority of the population who will go vegan when educated, but most people will not. That is genuinely... Is that the vegan black pill? Maybe I took the vegan black pill and now I'm like, I can only connect super close emotionally with like the minority of the population. But that doesn't mean a plant-based food system is impossible. It also doesn't mean we can't make wins for animals through pressure campaigns and legislative work. And also, if you ask most people, do they support factory farming, which is the vast majority of animal products, where they are coming from, most people will say no. So I know that there is hope. It's just the fact that most people are thinking mostly about themselves, or they're too conditioned, or they're worried about, you know, not fitting in if they go vegan. There's like, you know, a couple big reasons why I think people are so intimidated and refuse to stop purchasing animal products. But I just, yeah, that was my black pill moment. So I was like, there's no way I'm talking to my family about this, because I can't escape my family. I'm like living with them on and off in between college. And then I dropped out of college in March of 2020, right when COVID was getting really bad. So that was like super fun, because now COVID is happening and I'm like doubly locked down at my parents' house. And at first it wasn't that bad, but with time it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, of like seeing animal products in the fridge and knowing that they work for the industry. And, you know, like I talked about earlier, the cows literally being in our backyard until like, you know, spring, when they disappear because they're going to be put in like a huge feedlot and then killed. Yeah. I did talk about animal rights and veganism with my family though. Really, like, this is the first time I can really remember where I said anything slightly noteworthy, which was, it was Thanksgiving 2019, and I made myself like a whole separate like vegan, you know, little feast, and they had the carnist one. I have not said the word carnist in so long. But they had their, you know, little carnist dead turkey carcass one. And this was before I realized I can't like eat at, you know, with people in my life who are eating animal products. I cannot eat with you if you're going to eat like animal products, like, period. But I sat at the table and ate my vegan food, and my uncle was like, what is the difference between vegan and vegetarian? And I was like, oh, well, vegetarians just don't eat meat, but vegans don't eat meat, dairy, eggs, also honey, and, you know, we don't buy leather or obviously fur, but that's just like, who buys fur who's not like super rich. The fur industry's dying, by the way, thanks to multiple things such as calf. But anyway, vegans also, I said, this is, yeah, the end of 2019, I was like, really summing it up here, but back then, yeah, vegans don't contribute to animal testing as far as like possible. Like I said, I'm still using some stuff that's tested on animals, but I'm like transitioning, and that was pretty good advertising. And then they were talking about factory farming of chickens, because there's a chicken factory farm that was just built at the time, pretty close to where we lived, and they were talking about how like my uncle, my dad were talking about how like a machine like scoops up the chickens really rough and before taking them to the slaughterhouse. And my aunt was like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I already was vegetarian. Maybe I'm, you know, I might be going vegetarian again after this conversation. And I was like, oh shit, my aunt might like join the vegan train. She didn't, but anyway. So that was me talking about it, but I didn't really say much though. I was like pretty timid with that, and for good reason, because I was living there. It makes total sense, but you know, I wish I could have talked more. But again, it kind of leads into this spiral where the more you talk about veganism with your loved one, the more resentment you kind of build, because you're like, you know, all these terrible things, but you're still paying for it just for convenience, just for taste pleasure, especially when vegan food, in my opinion, I lost nothing taste-wise when I went vegan. I think vegan food is literally, plants are the vast majority of food options there is. Plants are all of flavoring. You can have any texture that is plant-based. Like, I don't need to eat the same 3 dead animals and then the eggs that come out of chickens' butts and the milk of a cow meant for her baby. Like, why would I need to eat those things? Or honey. But yeah, there was some transition with cruelty-free products. Like, my mom thought that the soap, I found a soap that was like not tested on animals. You also have to make sure the ingredients are vegan, by the way. I have a guide on my Instagram for that. You can see it's pinned in my profile. But anyway, I found like cruelty-free soap, and my mom was like, that's too expensive. So I just, like, it took me a while to transition because I didn't have my own income. So, but by May of 2020, all my stuff, like my cosmetics and household like liquids and stuff, was like all cruelty-free and vegan. So ever since then, my cosmetics and household items have been 100% cruelty-free and vegan. I'm not trying to call anyone out right now, but I know a lot of vegans who just like skip the cruelty-free thing and are just like buying like stuff tested on animals, and like that doesn't make sense to me. Like, the veganism is about your whole lifestyle and purchases, not just your food. You know, that doesn't make sense. Anyway. So there was other tensions in living there because I wasn't really talking about God anymore. They were kind of like figuring out that I'm not like Christian. I couldn't really explicitly say that because I don't want to like cause a big argument, because like to them it's a huge issue, because I mean, it's kind of a threat to what they believe, and they also think I'm going to go to hell, and it's like, you got to like convert me back. Otherwise, like, they're going to be in heaven while I'm in hell for all eternity. Like, I love Christianity. I love religion so much. But so anyway, that was like a tension. And then politically, my dad like hates left-wing people. So you just can't talk about politics. So veganism wasn't the only tension of me, living there in the very beginning of my adulthood, but it was one of many tensions and problems that were existing. And yeah, I don't want to go into literally everything right now. This video is mostly about veganism, so I'm going to keep it that way. Then, yeah, one thing that happened also is when I turned 20, I made like a vegan meal and also a vegan cake for my 20th birthday. And, I celebrated it with my parents and my brother, and like they ate it and everything was good, I think. And then they bring out dairy ice cream for the cake. It just reminded me of that one Gary Roski story that he talked about, where like his family couldn't just eat vegan for one meal on his birthday, so he left. So I like left, and I remember tweeting that and getting like 400 likes. This is when like people on Twitter loved me for some reason. So I don't I would just tweet about like personal stuff sometimes and people would like it. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I feel like I have like these connections online, at least, if because I've never met another vegan in person. I have never been able to go to activism. So that happened. And then also I was going grocery shopping with my mom, because she was buying my groceries. I had no income. Jobs were super hard to get during COVID in rural Nebraska. And it took me until March of 2021 to get a job. So for all of 2020, like, your girl is unemployed and just existing in her bedroom, making TikToks about veganism online and wanting to move out. So that was an era. I call it the 15 months because that's how long it lasted. But I had to go grocery shopping, and that sucked because I had to watch my mom like buy meat. And also I was like scanning the meat at the beginning, which is like, no, can't do that. I don't know why we did self-checkout when we had like a whole shopping cart full. Is that how bad Walmart is at like keeping employees to check people? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, so I just remember like feeling like really sad and like scanning a piece of an animal's body and thinking about all their suffering that they went through is just so their carcass could get, the barcode on it could get scanned. Like, everything that happens in that industry is just so somebody can buy and eat it. And we don't have to eat their bodies. Like, we could just easily not do that. It's also, like, destroying the environment, destroying the planet we live on. Also destroying our health. Giving us heart disease and cancer. Like, are you kidding me? Like, okay. Got it. Okay. So that was just emotionally difficult for me, and eventually I started to distance myself from it, but I couldn't stop going grocery shopping with my mom because I needed her to buy my groceries because I didn't have a job. So there's just a lot that was like not sliding with me. It was really like emotionally difficult of being there, and then I started to like post stuff on Facebook because I didn't want to like have an in-person conversation, but I felt bad like seeing them keep buying animal products and, always buying milk. My mom can't consume dairy, but, my dad and brother can. So, yeah, it was just, like, kind of driving me crazy being there. And, yeah, it literally hit 2 years since I decided to go vegan. And I was still there, never interacting with another vegan in person. I had online vegan friends who I met through, like, vegan Twitter and vegan TikTok, and I would have calls with them, but I would feel like anxious about my family hearing because the house I lived in was like 100 years old and like really, really thin walls and like old, so that was also why I had to wait for my family to leave, which only happened like literally 3 or 4 times a year that I was home alone where I could like film. Otherwise I had to like go out to film, and a couple of times I filmed comment response videos, debunking anti-vegan arguments. on TikTok when they were home, but it was just like a really, really frustrating situation to be in, and I needed to get out of it. I also wanted to leave Nebraska for multiple reasons, because ever since I was 15, I always wanted to live in a big city, and living in Lincoln didn't really scratch that itch for me. I was not like satisfied, and I hadn't really traveled much at all. Like, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to live elsewhere. I needed to be somewhere where I can connect with people politically, people who would accept me for being bisexual, and, you know, vegans, people who care about animals and who are going to fight for them alongside me. Like, those are the kind of people who I was connecting with online, and who I know I could actually build like solid friendships and hopefully a romantic relationship with. So, but I felt kind of like guilty in a sense, because I wasn't really speaking it for the animals. So I felt like that's why I was like reposting like Joy Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, like other groups stuff on my Facebook, and just so my family would see it. And then that just spiraled into me getting more frustrated, because now they've seen this stuff that I'm posting and they're still eating animal products. Like, it just kind of kept spiraling, and then they felt more tension, I believe, but they weren't really confronting me about it. Also, yeah, the TikTok 2020 era was super interesting, because I got like literally, there's some months where I got like hundreds of thousands of views, and I was like, I was reaching so many non-vegans, and that also was making me feel hopeless, because not hopeless, but a little more hopeless, because like not many people were going vegan because of what I was doing, and people were just, you know, using the same excuses, or literally mocking me, you know, making fun of my body, or just like mocking me for caring about animals, and mocking the animals' suffering, and saying I don't care if pigs scream in gas chambers, like their flesh tastes good as bacon. Like, yeah, I'd let it like get to me to an extent, but that was because I had literally all the free time in the world. So I just kept like responding to people in the comments, and I probably shouldn't have done that to the degree that I did. But I don't think outreach is that effective now. I think you should do it. I think it is good to do. It's definitely worthwhile, and I think it's an important part of the movement, but we should focus on things that have tangible results as well, and highlight those things, such as pressure campaigns, legislative work, etc. But anyway, I was an outreacher at the time. I didn't know any better. I thought the only thing we could do is like try to beg people to go vegan like we did, and that's the only way to stop animal agriculture and, you know, fight speciesism and animal oppression. 2020 was also crazy, because that vegan teacher was like blowing up, and she was like loosely connected with the actual group of like vegan TikTokers who, you know, I knew and was friends with some of them, or at least acquaintances, you know, some people who I was actually friends with, and some people who we just follow each other. But anyway, and then some people who never followed me back. Anyway, she reposted my videos sometimes, and that was kind of crazy, because I'm like, she had like 1 million, 2 million, whatever it was, followers at the time. And I'm like, what if my family sees this? Like, she's viral. Like, I have no concept if my brother has TikTok or not. Like, he and I weren't really talking much. I was just like very distant from my family at this point in time. I feel like part of it was tension about veganism, and I don't know. Just like a mix of different things. But yeah, this was just like an insane era. Like, I literally had a DM with that vegan teacher, and I lost friends over that, because I was like defending her when she got banned, because I think it's stupid that people start a petition to ban her, and then like they're acting like they're the victim because they had to see vegan videos. Like, she was outlandish. She could say stuff that was like insensitive, 100%. And I'm not defending every single thing that she did, but she, you know, was very set on conveying the right vegan message. You know, again, she was not perfect. A lot of things she did, I'm not condoning whatsoever. I think, you know, I don't know. All I knew is that I liked that at least about her, and I'm still trying to figure out like if her videos were like, you know, overall good for veganism or bad. I still think good. Even though I don't know though. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. But, and it was also crazy because she had an interview with my friend, Martin, and I was like, what the is happening? Like, this is like such a crazy time. Oh, that's what I was saying. I lost friends because after I defended her on my TikTok, because after she was banned, because that's stupid. You can start a petition and get someone banned from TikTok who hasn't violated the guidelines. Like, did she violate the guidelines at that time? I don't know. But her response to this is to make a YouTube video about censorship. Okay, sure, censorship is bad. Okay. She's like, I'm gonna like have this black doll in it, okay? And I'm gonna like say that censorship includes the N-word. And I'm gonna write the N-word. Okay. She wrote the N-word and was like saying, we can reclaim the N-word. And anyone can say the N-word. And like no words should be censored. And the N-word can mean something good. I was like, are you kidding me? I have no idea if those people who I was friends with, who would follow me, it was because of that or not. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, this is a crazy time. I finally got a job in March 2021 and I was saving to move out because obviously I wanted to leave Nebraska for all the reasons aforementioned. It was not just about not living with my parents. Nebraska was also the problem. Insane amount of conservative Christians. There's nobody my age. All my friends after high school moved away. I didn't really make friends in college. And I'm just like there. I'm just like, I'm here in my bedroom every day. Don't really have anything going on. Just here. Don't recommend that. Don't recommend spending a year in your childhood bedroom with no life. I don't recommend that. But I did move after I saved money and I went to a farm sanctuary, which I was connected to that farm sanctuary from a friend who I met on vegan TikTok. So my vegan TikTok really did come in clutch with that because I was able to move to the West Coast. Originally I was on Oregon and I was at that farm sanctuary for like 2 months. And they were moving just conveniently right then after my car crashed and I couldn't, they were taking forever to fix it and I didn't know I didn't have insurance that would cover that. A lot of what happened at this time was just me being 21 and not really knowing a lot of adult things yet. That was just like all really bad luck. I don't really know what the plan was in me going there specifically because it wasn't really close to any city also. And obviously I lived in a shack that had mice in it and I already made a video on this and I deleted it, but I was like, at first I was like, yeah, this is cool, living on a farm sanctuary with animals. And then it like quickly became like a nightmare. But I got out. There's like way too much to talk about. I don't know like how long I want this video to go. It just keeps going on and on and on. Okay, anyway, I did get out of the situation thanks to vegan TikTok, basically, and the friend who was super generous to let me stay with them in Seattle. So I moved to Washington and I fell in love with Washington. I also made another video about living by factory farms in Nebraska and I also deleted that because I was just kind of like ranting in it. But yeah, that was another aspect of why it was so difficult because factory farms just kept being built where I lived and it just kept popping up and more kept being built. And yeah, I said before there was a chicken factory farm that was near me and there was also a pig farm. I don't know how big it was, if it was technically a factory farm or not. It doesn't really matter. But I was on a walk with my mom one day and we happened to stumble upon a dead pile of pigs. Like dead piles is a thing with industrial animal agriculture where animals will die from the conditions of the farm because that's how horrendous it is. Animals are living in their own feces. If they get a cut, they can get a disease, a virus so easily with living in their feces. Again, this book, I learned so many horrifying things as if I didn't already know enough horrifying things about animal agriculture. Yeah, dead piles are a thing, and I stumbled across some dead pigs on this walk, and that freaked me out. That's just like, it's just kind of traumatizing. And then the fact that my mom was there, and to her, this is not out of the ordinary. This is like nothing that crazy. And I remember like, you know, going to talk to her about, I don't know what it was, but something random that afternoon, and she's cutting up like meat in the kitchen. She might have been cutting up pig meat, and it's like, that's just like, that was just a crazy experience. I don't really know what else to say. Just like, there's no problem with that. Like, other people live in cities and their family have not been around animal agriculture, so it's like easier to see them buy animal products, I think. But to me, my family was so connected to the industry that it made it more difficult to be around, because it's like, you just saw that and there's no issue with that. Like, we're just gonna continue to buy dead bodies now? Okay. Another conversation that happened was, I don't know what the exact trigger was, but my mom was saying that there was a dog that was tied up in a garage, and she was saying how terrible this is, and I was like, yeah, that's terrible for an animal to be kept confined in the dark. And I was like, you know, what they do with pigs on factory farms is they keep them in farrowing crates, and they literally cannot turn around. That's how confined they are. And, you know, it's similar to what you're saying, basically. And my mom was like, oh, well, they have to keep them in farrowing crates so they don't crush their babies. And she said something about how, like, when Dad was growing up, something to do with the pigs would crush their babies. And whether or not less piglets are crushed with farrowing crates, does that make keeping an animal as intelligent as a 3-year-old child in insane confinement, does that make that moral? And we don't have to breed these piglets into existence, period. Like, we don't have to breed them into existence at all. We don't need to eat their bodies. So, but yeah, it just was like frustrating because I didn't know exactly what to say. Like, but trust me when I say that factory farmers are not confining animals for the animal's best interest. Everything that they do is for maximum profit. That is in the nature of the entire operation. They get so little space because that's what makes the most money. Also, they're slaughtered so quickly, and, you know, so many animals are actually conscious when their, you know, necks are sliced open, because faster equals more money. Like, you literally just can't tell me that factory farming, like, keeping an animal that is that intelligent, even if they weren't that intelligent, but just the fact that they are that intelligent and they can suffer extreme psychological stress, which can also make them more aggressive, by the way. But I just, when I've seen piglets, you know, on sanctuaries, clink, clink. I don't think it's like some epidemic where they keep crushing their babies and we need to confine them in a fucking cage so it will stop. Like, what? And also, the piglets die for many causes, like disease, from being on factory farms. And don't get me started on the practices of cutting off their tails, their teeth, and testicles with no anesthetic, and also debeaking chickens, so that these animals do not, you know, attack each other, which they would do because of the confinement that they are kept in, the psychological stress of being in such confinement with nowhere else to go. You know, you can't see this guy and walk on the grass and see the sun. It's literally just you in a shed with a bunch of other animals. Also, chickens, you know, who are genetically bred to be too big to sustain their body weight, where they're dying because they're still a chick, but they look like a grown chicken, and they're dying because they cannot reach food or water. Anyway, later on, my mom did say that, like, she wishes animal farming was how it used to be and not factory farming, but this was just insane, and also insane because my mom is like super loves dogs, and she also said how she would want a potbelly pig maybe as a pet. So you want a pig as a pet, but you're defending farrowing crates, and okay, I'm not gonna get into it. I feel the same about any non-vegan. It's just, you know, the worst and most emotionally difficult when it comes to my family, because I do care about them, but they are obviously connected to that industry in more ways than one. And then for Christmas 2020, I asked for some like vegan type shirts, and my aunt the previous Christmas had given me a shirt that said vegan on it, so I didn't think this was like that insane. I just wanted something that like represented who I am, because I felt like my family didn't really know me, but my mom didn't get anything like that. And then she said that my vegan shirts offend dad. I think it's because I wore this shirt. Yeah, she said your vegan shirts offend dad because, you know, he works for animal agriculture, and like I didn't really know what to say about that. And then as it got harder, I remember just trying to surround myself with other animal rights things, like watching videos and talking to my friends, and I put an animal liberation sticker on my car when I finally got a car from my job in 2021, which I was able to use to move away from Nebraska to the sanctuary. And I still talk to my family, but obviously, as I've said a million times in this video, there's like difficulty with that. And yeah, I feel like at the end, my family also, because of the like tension, also wanted me out, and they were worried about me moving to another state. You know, there was like risk in doing that. Yeah, my friend gave me a place to stay, and I was able to, you know, get on my feet in Washington, and I really loved living in Washington. I connected with the animal rights scene there and made friends, and that's where I met my now ex-boyfriend, but I dated an animal rights activist for 3.5 years, and yeah, it just felt really amazing to finally be around people who connect with me and all my values, and who are passionate about ending oppression the same way that I am. And then moved to California. That was when I was with my ex-boyfriend. We moved here together, but now it's just me here. And yeah, a lot happened, but I've been very grateful to get to like travel and do animal activism and pressure campaigns in different countries and cities around the world and around the country. And I've met so many amazing people who care so much. Yeah, I'm glad that things were able to work out. It's been 5 years since I left. Also, my ex-boyfriend, I just remember how his parents were like okay with him talking about his animal activism, and yeah, like any non-vegan, you know, is gonna have their walls up if, you know, they're not open to talking about it. Obviously, it's not an uncommon thing, not acting like it is, but he was able to talk about it with them in a way that I can't really. Like, if I mention it, like, you know, my mom doesn't really have anything to say about that, because I mean, she cares about animals, but like their whole livelihood right now is from animal agriculture essentially. And it makes me think of that Upton Sinclair quote, which I also got from this book. The quote is, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." And that just simply explains why I can't really go there, and why it would be very difficult to get my family to understand. Obviously, there are ways for, you know, animal farmers to transition to owning a sanctuary or plant agriculture. There's the Ranchers Advocacy Program, and I'm sure that like with crop agriculture for animal agriculture, that would be similar. I know some of the corn goes towards ethanol, but obviously there would be a way that you can grow it for human consumption, I think. I'm not sure how difficult that would be. yeah, I really am just not fully educated on farming. My brother's the one who is taking over the farm, not me. But I was never interested in taking over the farm. Like, maybe I could have tried to when I was younger, but I was just not interested. Which now, like, I think it'd be cool to have like a garden and do like a little plant farm, but I can't really farm multiple fields. I don't know. I don't really want to do that. But yeah, I just feel like it's a unique struggle that I've experienced because of the connection, money-wise, to animal agriculture. I don't know what else to say. This has been fun and hot. I am so hot right now. If you watched this whole video, thank you, because it was like insanely long, and I still don't know if my channel will ever go anywhere. I feel like vegan channels especially might be shadow banned, because there's a lot of activists who make like pretty good videos and they only get like in the single digit thousands of subscribers, and it's like, that's even not much. And like, you know, I admit they're making the consistent high quality content that I haven't been, and they're still there. Like, okay. YouTube is just like a very like hard thing in general to succeed at and actually like grow a following or make money, and I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I still just make videos for the sake of it, and like, maybe someday I'll get views. You never know. That day is never coming. No, it is. No, it's not. It's not coming. One can dream, though. We can dream. It's happening someday, trust me. It's not. I hope this microphone was a good experience, because I spent bank on these, and I really like them. I think they're really good. I like this little faux fur thing. It's called a dead cat. That's like terrible. Why would you call it a dead cat? Okay, bye.